Hi, folks. It's Halo's 25th anniversary, and I'd recently submitted a story about at least one of my memories, and it got me thinking, really, is that I've got an awful lot of them to share. And it starts all the way with Halo Combat Evolved in this very room, which, when I reflect back on a lot of it, it kind of it's really nostalgic, but also a bit eerie at the same time. So I was, I think, about 8 or 9 years old when Halo Combat Evolved came into this household, at least. Um, it was Christmas, and my parents had bought me an Xbox console. Now, my household, we weren't super glued to like the TV. We weren't super game focused, so like I had no idea what Halo Combat Evolved was. I didn't know anything really. Other than that, my dad told me that he thought he'd like it. It had something to do with aliens. That was about it. So this very room that I'm sitting in right now at the time had only been built maybe a month prior. There was no carpet, there was no internal walls. I'm not even entirely sure if we had a ceiling up at that point. All I had in here was literally a bed, which was sort of over here where the display cabinet is now. A single pine bed with mattress and, my sheet, my duvet and everything. And then over this side, just in this corner, right next to where I'm talking to you guys right now, was my box TV on the floor and the Xbox right next to it. And because it was Christmas, we had a tub of Quality Street, and that was on the floor. If you're not familiar with what Quality Street is, it's literally just a selection of chocolates and toffees and stuff like that. And I think it was probably around 7 p.m. in the evening, and I started the Halo experience. And that was just the very first touchdown of my entire Halo journey. And I consistently played that over and over and over and over and again. And that it was 343 Guilty Spark was the first time a game out of everything inflicted terror into me. I mean, I was absolutely petrified, like running through those corridors with, my shotgun, and next minute a combat flood would smack me from behind, or I could hear their voices of running and the grunts. And I'll tell you now, as an 8, I can't remember if I was 8 or 9, so, forgive me if I keep saying 8 or 9, but whatever age it was, that was bloody terrifying. And it kind of inflicted this, oh my god, I'm really enjoying this. And, back then my hands were, well, not that much smaller, but a little small. So holding that massive Duke controller, which I still have in one of the cabinets around here, was a really odd feeling to me, because I hadn't been really a huge gamer. I mean, I played a little bit on the PlayStation 1, a little bit on, Sega, and obviously in the arcades at the time. But I wasn't at that stage in time what I considered, a gamer. And again, we weren't, like my family, we weren't really super into, watching an awful lot of TV, a lot of gaming. So like now I'll fast forward to Halo 2 when I was in our city centre and I was walking around with my mum at the time, and we were sort of popping into stores, and I remember my mum asking me, would you like to pop into Game, which is a store here in United Kingdom? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? And I was flicking through and I saw Halo 2. And I had no idea. I think I was late to the show on that one as well. I think this might have been the year after it released. And I was like, oh my god, I didn't know there was a second one. And Halo 2, probably out of all the campaigns, is the one that I've probably played over and over and over again the most. Again, in this room, this time the TV was over there. I'd upgraded a little bit at this point in time. I had carpet, I had furniture, I'd, everything in store. And I just kept playing it over and over and over and over and over and over again. And at this moment in time in my life, I had then started to make friends at high school. And, we started slowly sharing our experiences, and we found out that we all played Halo 2 and we all loved it, and we should get together and play together. And I remember at the time I didn't really think of what that would mean. And for all you people that did not grow up with the massive backbox TVs, it was an experience, because we would quite literally shove our Xbox consoles, which the original Xbox consoles weren't light, in our backpacks, and we would physically carry these humongous TVs in our arms. I mean, mine was probably about yay big by yay big. That it was heavy, and we would lug it. I mean, my nearest friend was about 30-minute walk. I mean, it was a big task, let's put it that way. And we'd jump into our friend's lounge, hook all our Xboxes up, and get all the controllers ready, and we'd just play hours and hours. And yes, we've all experienced those moments where our friend thinks it's really funny and clever to spawn trap us or shoot rockets constantly at us, and someone will come up with a brand idea of, let's have unlimited lives and let's have a game session that lasts an hour. And then this is also the time that a lot of us didn't have mobiles, so then you'd hear the landline ring, and it'd be like my parent calling another parent saying, is Dan still there, because he really needs to get home. And again, you'd then have to pack everything up you'd taken and bring it all home. But this was like the first step that I'd taken into playing with other people, because up until that point I'd just been playing on my own with the Covenant, effectively. And that lasted all the way until Halo 3. Now, at this point, the internet had been a bit more readily available. We were a bit more conscious about what was going on in the world. And my best friend, he'd just got an Xbox. He'll correct me, but I swear it was Christmas time. It was Christmas or birthday, but I remember he got an IOU from his parents, but then did get the Xbox. And the first thing he said was, "Got Halo 3." And at that time, we were both in Air Cadets, so I think it was the Tuesday, we'd come around mine, he'd stay around mine, and then on the Friday, we'd go around his. And oh my God, it was not only that realization of graphics, a new story, but also, again, being able to share it with someone else. And I had to wait my turn. We would play Halo 3 a lot around his. And it wasn't until my 15th birthday, and I'll lay some groundwork here on this one as well, is that at that moment in my time, my parents had fallen into some real financial difficulties. It was a really tight time for my family. And, not that was any bother to us. We cracked on, as everyone does. I'm sure some people that are viewing it have been through financial difficulties in their life. And, you've just got to crack on. And my dad brought through, my Christmas present. I thought, birthday present, sorry. And I thought, whoa, this is a big box. I was like, I was expecting something quite small, really. I really had low expectations that year. And he said, go and open it up. And again, I was sat in this room. I'm sort of delicately taking off the wrapping paper, because I thought, well, if I, regardless what it is inside, if I sort of take my time with it, one, it doesn't show I'm unappreciative, and two, it sort of like installs that sense of gratitude to my parents. And I sort of peeled it away, and I could see 360. Straight away I knew it was the Xbox 360. So then I'm starting to tear it a bit faster, and I realise actually it's the Halo 3 limited edition console. And I was blown away. I've still got the console. I've got all my consoles. I'll lay this all down, but I've got basically everything Halo wise, like in terms of consoles and games, I still have today. But I was 15, but I couldn't help it. I could feel like that sense of excitement, but also like huge gratitude and sort of like overwhelming joy, because I had sort of tears streaming up in my eyes. My dad did too, because I'm sure they worked their absolute butts off to get that for me. And I can't remember if it was that night or if it was shortly after, but we had only just recently got the internet in our household, um, and I'm pretty sure the Ethernet cable was in the box, if I remember right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but straight away, me and my friend Ryan took that through into my living room and hooked it all up, and that was it. That was the beginning of my online journey. At the time, my gamer tag was Major Master 1992. And that was it. We jumped into the boot camp and we did everything. And Halo 3 was the biggest part of my Halo journey out of them all. Not because for me, it just holds a massive milestone in my journey for Halo. We did multiplayer experiences. We did all the double XP weekends. I mean, physically, like we all rode our bikes to school, and the moment that bell went, we jumped on our bikes, and I cycled as hard and fast as I could home, just so I could get on for the double XP weekends. And naturally, zombies, the Living Dead, Grifball were some of my favorites, and we would play them pretty late into the night / early morning. But it wasn't just that, it was the Vidmaster challenges. They became a huge part of our experience too, because achievements came as part of the Xbox 360 experience. And anyone that did the Vidmasters know that they weren't any joke. That was serious business. So it was a massive sense of achievement getting that and knowing the reward at the end of it, which was the Halo 3 Recon helmet. But it didn't just stop there either. At that point, I think I had got a laptop, and I'd started to explore the BungieNet forums, and I realised there was a lot of people out there also trying to get Vidmaster, and I thought, well, I've got mine, so I'll help out, and then it became a journey of helping people that you had never met before, and were in totally different countries on different time zones, and just playing for hours, helping them achieve it, and then sort of at the end of it, all jumping into a custom game and just flaunting off our Recon helmets. And that just opened up the world for me. Along that journey, I discovered Justin.tv, which, we all now know eventually became Twitch. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. Like, people are recording and streaming and interacting and showing their Halo experience, and I thought, I'd love to do that. And eventually I did. I mean, it wasn't for quite a few years later. I think I got on the scene about 2000 I don't know, it must have been 2012, 13, something along them lines. Which was, just around the corner from Halo 4 releasing. And that was a big shift at that point. From Halo 3, we had Halo 3 ODST, which was, again, a huge experience for us, because it wasn't the traditional multiplayer experience that we've been used to on Halo 3. But we did have a huge firefight experience, which, again, we took part in so many challenges. In fact, we participated in one of the challenges, which was getting, I can't remember what map it was, but it was getting a certain amount of score, and we must have put in a good 11 hours of work, and we were so confident that we were going to be in the top 3, to then eventually realizing that new rules had been released halfway through, and there were certain things you couldn't use, and obviously that meant that we were effectively disqualified. And bearing in mind, at this time in our lives, like, we're still young, I still had a paper round, so like when my friend Ryan would stay over all night, we would play until it was time to go off and do my paper round, and then straight after paper round, it was straight to high school. So you can imagine how downtrodden that we felt about that. I think I still got a screenshot somewhere of that, so I'll try and pop that in. But then that opened the doorway to the Halo Reach beta, which again we participated in, and Halo Reach was again a great experience for us, because it was sort of taking us back a little bit, exploring a new story which wasn't kind of focused around Chief, and exploring some new game modes, some new maps. I think like we really dove into like the Forge projects at that point. We tested it a little bit with Halo 3 and sort of start doing Christmas cards, which actually now thinking about, I don't really know how that came about doing our Christmas cards, because it wasn't like we ever really printed it off and sent it to anyone. But we kind of did that every year in the Halo games. You know, we started off on Halo 3, did it in Halo Reach. I think we did a few in Halo 4. And then, yeah, and that kind of brings us along to like Halo 4. Is I was working at Blockbusters at the time, and I had convinced my manager to keep the store open, you know, do a midnight release. You know, game always does them, you know, we'll be huge, you know, we'll be the only one this side of the city that does it. I think I was only one of 3 people. Bear in mind, I worked there. I think I was only one of 3 people that turned up. I mean, he was still happy because I had ordered the console edition, so you know we didn't lose an awful lot of money. But now looking back over it, I'm sure my manager went home swearing my name that day. But every single Halo game I've more or less either been at home for or taken time off work for to play, and it hasn't really stopped there. I mean, it was even an influence for me to buy this house of my parents. I had like 3 main reasons for this house. I have an open fireplace, that was a win for me. We have a big garden, and I've always felt comfortable in this house. I've literally lived in this house since I was 8 years old. So just before 2018, I bought the place of my parents. It was my bedroom, and quite literally, like where you see this cabinet is one side of the wall, and just past my arm is kind of like the other wall. So it wasn't a massive room. But this became the gaming room, you know, the office. And not that I can do it a lot of justice, but I will put images on in a little while. Is I started the Halo collection, you know, and that sort of started at Halo 3, and it's just kind of grown constantly. And anyone that's watching this from England, United Kingdom, you'll know it's a big challenge our way to get certain Halo collectibles. Whether or not there wasn't a massive market in the first place, I couldn't really say. But now, finding like either pristine or sealed or even all intact figures or statues is incredibly difficult. So it has been a labor of love over many years. A lot of the time it's been like picking up either incomplete figures and then like eventually finding another incomplete figure and sort of making one whole, or you've just managed to hunt down a great deal. I mean, I will say April last year I managed to get my absolute holy grail item, something that I dreamed of ever since starting the Halo collection, and that was the Halo 3 Cortana. I got her at a really good price, and it was from a UK seller, someone who I connected with and sort of like spoke a lot about our collections. But for me, it's become a huge part of not only is it been a pleasure to collect all these items and safeguard them and sort of showcase them, because this, you know, effectively my collection started with Halo Combat Evolved. You know, I've got every console that I've had, I've got all the games that I've had. But in 2020 I became a dad for the first time. I'm now a father of 2, and I kind of realized eventually it's not just now for my enjoyment, it's also became a legacy, because one day I will leave this mortal realm and they will inherit everything in this room. And I've always been quite comfortable in saying, you know, it doesn't matter to me if they want to keep it or if they want to sell it or whatever. Just that it will get a good home, you know, I will make sure that that is the case. And it's kind of a sobering thought thinking of it that way, because like I'm hoping, if I'm lucky, I've got like maybe another 60 years on the clock at a bit bare minimum, and we're looking at, you know, 2086. And that's crazy to think that all of this in this room and the universe hopefully will have continued far and far and far in between. And, you know, I'll still be an OAP playing Halo. And I can't really, like, I've been now speaking for nearly 20 minutes, and I still can't quite put into words, like, what a massive part Halo has played in my life. I mean, most things I've taken part in, you know, I do live stream, although it's been a lot on and off since I've become a dad. Just frankly, because until they've both gone to school, that is my main responsibility. But you know, I've been doing YouTube for a certain number of years. I've done TikTok. I've done digital art. I got a 3D printer so I could print, you know, custom Halo 3 props. You know, you can see the Magnum just behind me. But I'll also add images of the other things I've made. I took part in multiple sort of projects online. I've connected with God knows how many creators, you know, big and small. You know, I've always said this when I've met the smaller creators on like Twitch especially, because I personally really enjoy watching people play through the campaigns, whether it's your first time or 1 billionth time. I just like, if I'm doing some work or if I'm doing a little bit of cooking or something like that, I really like putting those on in the background and just sort of like getting to know them and their experience and see how they interact with the universe as well has just been a huge pleasure, and I really hope that continues, you know, especially with you know, Halo coming back this year, having Sony people join the fight. I'm really looking forward to seeing their gameplay and like how they interact with it. And the same with us, you know, some of us veterans, you know, we're going to be experiencing a lot of it again, but in a different way. So I am looking forward to seeing how that's all going to play into it. But that doesn't mean that I haven't interacted with creators that are doing multiplayer experiences or challenges. You know, I've often done that as well. And again, I just can't really put into words what the last 25 years have provided me, my friends, my sort of my future, and like even my creativity. And it's just a big thank you really to everyone that's involved with the Halo universe. I know sometimes as a community we're a little bit on different sides of the coin when it comes to opinions and views and how we interact with it, but I sometimes don't think that matters all too much, is that we're still a community and we're still safeguarding a lot of this Halo universe that we all love to interact with. And I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of the new players over the generations come over and interact with it. I'm looking forward to seeing how some of the veterans interact with it. You know, I'm 33, so there's a lot of people that I already interact with who are, you know, bigger and smaller, but no matter what area you come from, I do like to interact as much as I physically can and enjoy your experiences as well as mine. So yeah, happy birthday Halo, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next 25 years bring, the next 50. Look, if I can get to the end of my life and Halo's still going strong, I'll be the happiest man on planet Earth. And my collection will continue to grow, although I have no idea where the hell I'm going to put it all, because I have really run out of space in this room. You know, you can already see a lot of the collection. This is probably about 50% of it already. So, yeah, it is crammed in here. But I hope I haven't waffled on too long. I have got many more stories. I'm going to try and edit this video as best as I can to put some screenshots and some, like, maybe some clips in. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the future. I will personally be returning to streaming a lot more come September 2026, which is a good time for those of you that know. But my youngest goes off to school, so I can start coming on a bit more and doing more content. And I'm really looking forward to interacting with a lot of you again. So I'll see you soon. Thanks for listening, and I'd love to hear your stories too, and I'm sure I will over the upcoming year.